Thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segala. I'll be your moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. These programs are designed to be informative, interesting. And not to break our pattern, we are going to have a very interesting program this time. We're going to talk about a new northern state of California, believe it or not. Our guest is Brett Murphy. Brett?
Thank you, Al. Thank you for having me.
Brett's one of the volunteers in our county, doing a lot of work to try to get the signatures and to get the ball rolling. All right, Brett, why'd you get involved in this thing?
Well, I have grown up in rural Northern California counties for all my life. I grew up in Plumas County, lived over in El Dorado County for 20 years, and have now been here in Calaveras County for a couple years. And it was very sad to me to see. I remember growing up in schools in these rural counties when the economies were going well, and the schools were not in want for anything. The logging industry was going, the sawmills were going, the tax revenue in the schools were doing great. The schools were funded well, and it's really hard to see the struggles that are going on now. And primarily what really got me involved in it is just an awareness as I have got a little bit older of what I was leaving for my children and for the next generation, and quite frankly, an unwillingness to be content with that. I think we need to make some changes. We need to leave something better for our next generation.
I understand there's a lot of support for this from across the political spectrum. We have Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, everybody upset about some counties, or actually cities, controlling the rural counties. And I guess what broke the camel's back was the fire tax, the phony fire fee. And everybody saw that as such a fraudulent thing. The Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association is suing the state, but we still don't have that resolved in the courts. But it turns out to be a blessing because people are waking up to the problem.
Yes, and I think I know it was put forth as a fee. I think it is accurately called a tax.
Right.
And it's, whenever you have a tax like that and what they say it's allocated for, and then you have 50% coming right off the top going into the general fund, it's pretty obvious what's going on there. And it is a very difficult thing when you have a state with the 21 counties. We have 21 counties now represented by this State of Jefferson movement. In those 21 counties, we have a total of 9 representatives. The remainder of the state has 111 representatives. So, as you have already said, that leaves us in a position in these rural counties of having suburban counties making all the decisions for us. And that doesn't make them bad people, but it is a very different lifestyle. They in many ways don't even understand how we live here. And to have them making decisions has not worked out well for us. We have a lot of policies and stuff statewide that have really hurt our rural counties.
Actually, the state of Jefferson is sort of a return to the Constitution, which provided a mechanism to avoid falling into a democracy, where 51% of the people can rob the other 49 if they vote on it. So by having one house of in this case the state Senate with representatives, one per county, then every county is represented by area as well. And of course, within the county, you have a Democratic elected representative. And so I think it goes back to Earl Warren, and I don't know, it was 60. I forget the date, but
64.
64, when he said one man, one vote, and he wiped out the constitutional protections. He changed our form of government from a constitutional republic meant to protect people to a democracy, which every democracy in the history of mankind has failed.
Yes, that is absolutely accurate, and that was that Reynolds Sims case that the Supreme Court handed down, the Warren Court handed down in '64, as you said, changed it where everything now, by the census, is redrawn in districts. Right. That's not the federal model. The federal model is still every state in our country has 2 senators.
Right.
So we have representation by geography, right. And then we have the House of Representatives. So the state of Jefferson is not opposed to one man, one vote. We absolutely agree that every person's vote should count. Right. But you need to have both. You need to have that geographic representation too. Yeah. Otherwise, when you go back to the foundations of this country and what our founding fathers realized with the Connecticut Compromise was if states like colonies at that time, like Rhode Island and Connecticut, weren't going to have a voice, then they didn't want to be part of this. Yeah. Well, we have that as the rural counties now, and that would be one of the things that the state of Jefferson would address is every county represented in the state of Jefferson will have a senator and will have representation.
I think an important point is that the state of Jefferson is not a secessionist movement for a new country away from the United States. It is a new state. It'll be the 51st state. And that's different. There's another movement going on in California to secede from the Union, which in our opinion is totally harebrained and dangerous.
Yes, and we would agree with that. And not only that, but secession is in fact illegal. The state of Jefferson loves this country. Yeah. We acknowledge we have some problems. And that's why representation is the basis of where we're coming from, because we feel like without representation, and that representation has been taken from us, it's very hard to correct those problems. But we are not interested in getting on it. We have a marvelous document in our Constitution, and we absolutely stand behind that document. We do not believe that is a living document. Every word in that document has a definition, and it's not a living document. It's a marvelous document. We want to put another star on the flag. We're not looking to take a star off. And you're right. Since the election, there is a movement that is looking to secede, and now there is yet another movement that is looking for Washington, Oregon, and California to secede.
Oh, I heard about that one.
Yeah, the Pacifica. We are not interested in that at all. We love the United States. We want to stay a part of the United States, but we want our representation back.
I understand splitting California is really not new.
It is not new. From the conception of California, it was understood that it was too big to govern. And they knew that at the time when California came in. But California, we had a little issue called the Civil War that they were not interested in bringing in 2 different states because at that point in our history, they did not want to bring in another slave state and another free state, which would have been the case if we came in as 2. So they brought in California as 1. But from the very beginning, they knew it was too big to govern. Over the years, there have been other attempts made, and interestingly enough, some of those attempts in our history have been the southern portion of the state, and the verbiage at the time was the affluent north is crushing the agrarian south. Right. Well, that has flip-flopped, obviously, now, but during the gold rush days, that was not true. All the money was in the northern part of the state. Right. So it has been a problem back and forth all along, but the basic problem is it is too big to govern. It really is just unwieldy.
So I understand the state of Jefferson would sell water to the other counties in the existing state of California.
Yeah, and that's.
Once it was in place.
Yes, we want to make sure people the other thing we want to be real sure of with the state of Jefferson, we are people of our word.
Right.
Many of these water issues are under contract.
Right.
And besides the legal issue of having to honor a contract,
Yeah.
we want to be people of our word, and we want to honor those contracts. So what is under contract, that's in place, and that's not going to be moved. So some of that water is, in fact, still going to go to the southern portion of the state. However, because of our lack of representation and the way that oftentimes is financed, there's a big burden put on the rural counties in the north that if we're going to give them the water, we can charge them for the infrastructure and we can charge them to deliver it. Hopefully, as time goes by, those contracts, as they come to the end of life, will not be renewed.
Right.
And we can deal with those things in that manner. But for the time being, some of those things will remain in place.
Okay, that's understandable. Also, in accordance with the principle of honoring contracts and honesty, the many of the supporters of the state of Jefferson are state employees, and they apparently have no fear of the new state because Jefferson honors existing contracts.
Jefferson absolutely will honor a contract that's in place, and state employees have nothing to fear. Even now, we don't so much deal with it in our part of the state, but when you get up further north, there's people that live in other states and work in California. That doesn't affect you. You have the freedom to do that, and that freedom would still exist. If they chose to live in Jefferson and work in California,
right,
or live in California and work in Jefferson, they are free to do so.
I understand in one county, Northern California, there was an effort in opposition to Jefferson to convince state employees that they were going to be fired, and because there's a large prison employees association, and it turned out to be false, but it prevented it lost the vote for support for the state of Jefferson in that county.
Yes, that was Del Norte County.
Yeah.
For anybody that's not familiar with Del Norte, a huge percentage of the population there is employed by Pelican Bay. It's a huge institution. They opted to go straight to the ballot with the measure and as you said, the state of Jefferson is a grassroots movement. We have never had a huge amount of funding.
Right.
It's the will of the people that has carried this thing and continues to carry it and continues to grow. Well, when you put something on a ballot like that, you have huge money that comes in there in opposition to you. And they told them that they were going to lose their job. That's absolutely untrue. We're still going to need prisons in the state of Jefferson. And as a matter of fact, California has created a big enough problem with their institutions that in all likelihood, that would be a revenue source for the state of Jefferson taking care of California prisoners.
Yeah, well, I think you should be paid for the work they do.
Yes.
That, according to contract.
Nobody is going to lose their job.
Yeah. Well, of course, that's good news. And another question is the state of Jefferson financially viable? What are your thoughts?
We get that question a lot. There's kind of a pretty common view of how are you going to do it without California? And I got to tell you, my initial response to that is, well, there's been 49 other states figure it out. So it's not it, but more black and white nuts and bolts issue of that. If you go to the State of Jefferson website, soj51.net,
right,
there's a financial model on there. It's broken out by every county that is part of the movement. Every one of these counties is financially able to do this right now.
right.
And that's that's even considering the policies that this state has put into place that have crushed the economies in these rural counties.
Yeah.
But the funding is still there to make it right now. And if we have the state of Jefferson, that's only going to go up because we we will not have a corporate income tax.
That was the next question.
We are going to create a business-friendly environment where businesses want to move in. We're going to get the economy going again. So it's all up from here. Right. And right now we're financially solvent. So that's an argument that gets made a lot. And you know, those numbers that are out there on our website, those aren't numbers we made. Those are numbers we took from the state of California. The state of California says that's what we have in these counties.
Right.
So I don't, it's beyond me where that argument keeps coming from. The numbers are right there.
Well, some of it could be that the state of California is a huge bureaucracy.
Yes.
And maybe it doesn't have to be so big. And the state of Jefferson, I think, is cutting that back quite a bit. So we're not going to be wasting as much money as the existing state of California.
Absolutely. The state of California right now has, and I don't have the exact number off the top of my head here, about 500 plus state agencies. We're starting to hammer this out in state of Jefferson right now because we need to have these things in place when we start a new state. It's not, you know, there will be a constitutional convention and some of these decisions will be made. But right now we're looking at maybe 50 statewide.
Quite a difference.
Yes. That's a huge amount of overhead. So yeah, there's in addition to the money that's there and our counties being able to make it financially right now, we have no intention of running the state of Jefferson in the manner that the state of California is being run in. Yeah. We would be opposed to that.
Well, with volunteer representatives, I think you'll have people that are there because they really care to be, not because of financial incentive.
Yes, it will be a part-time legislature, and we are not going to build some new shiny building somewhere for the state legislature to be in. We will find vacant real estate somewhere, in all likelihood further north of here, and they will do their business that needs to be done in that building. There's no reason to spend a boatload of money for a new building.
One of the things our Taxpayer Association is really rooting for is no personal income tax. And we may have to go to the Constitutional Convention to for that to be finally settled.
Oh well, and that is something that will be hammered out. As you know, that I'm not sure that everybody involved in the state of Jefferson right now, because there are different views even within the state of Jefferson. I'm not sure that everybody's on the same page there. I would lean the same direction as you. I would love to see that go away, but we're really about liberty, so it's going to be the decision of the people, and I would love to see the people able to make that decision.
You know, when you mentioned liberty, you're touching the best of the Democrats, the best of the Republicans, and the best of libertarians.
Yeah.
That's a golden thread that goes through all the ideologies that care about a future.
Well, and it is the state of Jefferson is a nonpartisan movement. Yeah. I know we're not always viewed that way. I'm aware of that, but it really is about representation and liberty. Why would anybody not want that? It doesn't matter where you're coming from, what political affiliation. It's liberty's something we all should desire.
Yeah, and our kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. There's some say there's really no reason why our free society couldn't last 200 years. Not the next election cycle. I mean, 200 years from now.
Yeah, well, and that would certainly be our hope from the state of Jefferson point of view is, that's all dependent. We were handed a marvelous country here, and we see what has happened. It is dependent on using your vote wisely.
Yeah.
But we would love to get a sovereign state with political leaders that recognize that sovereignty and recognize the jurisdiction that they have, that they're responsible for, and are willing to interpose and if need be, shut down bad programs that are coming from
Right.
the federal level.
Yeah, that should have been done a long time ago.
Yep.
It seems like there's two areas of concern. One is education, and the other one is our media. And I don't know if you noticed this last election, our mainstream media is just horrible.
Yeah.
They don't do news anymore. They don't do truth. They do slogans. And how can people that depend on the media to get information to make decisions make any wise decisions if the information is being withheld from them? It's pretty scary.
Well, and as far as mainstream media,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you.
Well, we got Fox News on the other side.
Yeah, I do think there's good sources of media out there, and if you look at the election results in Calaveras County, and in many of these rural counties, people did see through it. Because
Yeah.
if you look at how we voted, but unfortunately, and that's why we want the state of Jefferson, our voices are unheard.
Yeah.
You can look at it on a county by county, and you can see that we do want our liberty back. But we just, with 9 representatives to 111, you're not going to win many of those fights.
Yeah. This is all good news. There's really no downside that I can think of where it hurt anybody.
People ask me about a downside to this sometimes, and I'll tell you the only downside that I see in it is just the amount of work. Starting a new state is not a small undertaking.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is not a downside. That's a worthy effort, and I am happy to do it, and I can tell you the people I'm working with are happy to do it. We have here in Calaveras County, we have Leah, who is our county chair.
Yeah.
We have Mark. We have David. We have Ann. We have a whole bunch of people, and I hesitate to name names, and I'm sorry because I know I'm going to be leaving people out.
Yeah.
But we just have a fantastic group of tireless workers.
Yeah. And I've met a lot of these people, and they're really wonderful.
Yeah.
One of the things, the main argument, as far as the courts go, is not whether there shall be a state of Jefferson or not. It's shall there be representation for the rural counties and how to bring that about. So the existing state of California could work to create a constitutional amendment for the state of California, which also require a federal constitutional amendment, which would allow return to representation of the counties. If they did that, they would be able to accomplish the purpose of the state of Jefferson, which is representation.
Yes. And with the state of Jefferson, for going on 4 years now, we have been making thousands and thousands of phone calls to our state legislators and saying, we want our representation back. Please support the state of Jefferson, and we have been systematically ignored.
Yeah.
I have personally talked to many of them and told them, if you don't like this idea, representation is what we're after. Give me another idea. I'm willing to listen. We'll drop this thing in a minute if you give us representation. We have been systematically ignored. They in most cases, will not even talk to us.
Now that's an example of misrepresentation or lack of representation.
Yes. Yes, they know we don't have a voice, and they're really not interested in responding. Where that has left us is either towards the end of January or the beginning of February, we are going to file a lawsuit. We are suing the state of California for delusion of vote and lack of representation. We are going to go through legal channels. Now, as you said, a state split can only come through legislation. So we're suing for delusion of vote and representation. That, through the appeals process, will eventually end up before the Supreme Court if it goes that far. All they can do is come back and say, you got to get these people some representation. It's still up to the state of California how they accomplish that. And at that point, we will again represent the state of Jefferson and say, it is too big to govern. If you got a better idea, let us know.
Right.
But this is our proposal. And the state of California, a lot of the opposition that we have incurred with the state of Jefferson is the power that they have. At that point, once they're told that they have to give us representation, they're going to lose that power either way.
Right.
So we do believe that we have a lot stronger case for a state split at that point.
Now, in Calaveras County, there's a lot of people going around getting signatures on petitions. It's not the same as a voter petition. It's a petition of opinion. Mm-hmm. And how many have we got so far?
We're 25 to 2,700. I think is where we're at right now, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It's been a while since I checked with Leah on that, so I'm not positive on that number, but somewhere around the mid 2,500 range, going for 9,000. So we're still. I know that sounds way
baby steps.
Well, and that does sound like we're way behind. But the reality is, Calaveras County was kind of late to this party, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But we kind of got active and got going on this thing in November. Some of the further northern counties have been working on this thing for going on 4 years now. So if you consider Calaveras County has just been doing this since last November, we're doing very well, and people are really starting to get on board with it.
And you have different booths, and you have some town hall meetings going on.
We do. We were very active this summer. You probably saw our booths around the county. We were all over the place. And coming up here shortly, there's a gun show coming up. I think it's the 15th and 16th. I'm not positive on those dates, up in Angels Camp at the fairgrounds. We will be there. The 28th at 6 in the evening at the Veterans Hall in Valley Springs, there is another town hall coming up. We will be laying out the state of Jefferson and what we're all about at that town hall. So yeah, there's activities coming up. There's a ton of information on the web.
Which is SOJ51.net.
Yeah, SOJ51.net. There are also local electronic outlets. Calaveras51sters.com is our website. Okay. And we are also on Facebook. Calaveras County for State of Jefferson. Very active Facebook page, and all the information's out there as these events come up.
Brett, it's so good to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. I think you'll probably realize that we're on the leading edge of things that are happening. So if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, watch our program. It's coming up. Thank you for watching.